Hi, my name is Alejandro Pérez Pérez, and this is the AI Coffee Podcast. Every 2 weeks, you will have one episode regarding one disruptive aspect of technology and artificial intelligence for the time you drink a cup of coffee. Today, we have a very inspirational guest. His name is Michael. Welcome, Michael, to the AI Coffee Podcast.
Hey Alejandro, thank you for having me.
Michael Odintsov Vaintrub is an expert in precision livestock farming and co-founder of Regrowth, a company focused on empowering small farmers in marginal areas. So that's quite interesting, actually. A person talking about farming, talking about countryside, and also artificial intelligence. So can you share with us your background in veterinary medicine and how it led you to become passionate about precision livestock farming for small farmers?
Yeah, of course. So I train as a veterinarian. It's a very long course, and one of the aspects that I really liked in medicine is a preventive medicine. So you seeing this developing, and you want to block the disease, or you want to prevent the disease before you get to treatment, antibiotics, and all the technical part. And one specific aspect about animals is if you know how much they eat, how much they sleep, or how much they move, you can see a change in a pattern of behavior. And when you see the change in pattern of behavior, you can predict the outburst of a disease. So, how do you know when the animal drink, eat, sleep, move? And here the technology comes in because precision livestock farming is a type of technology that tracks each animal individually during the day, and it gives you the data about its behavior after a series of analysis. So I came to it wanting to treat animals before they get sick, and I ended up with a lot of technical guys around me working on how the system needs to work and what data it needs to collect.
And I mean, it's very focused on data and technical aspects, but also, I mean, it's a very practical domain. So can you explain more or less what's a day in your daily life, because you need to go to the country to see the animals, right? So how it works?
Yeah, so I'm actually a person that needs to connect data scientists and engineers that have never seen a farm in their life with farmers that have never seen an engineer or data in their life. And somebody needs to be in the middle to explain to each one of the sides what the other is talking about. And most of my days are I now run my own experimental farm, and with my co-founder who's the technical background, every day I need to tell him, look, the animals are looking this way, I need this data, we need to explore this side. Why didn't I got the information about it before? And he's the one who actually tasked with developing the solutions. Of course, I also go to the farms and I do the veterinary evaluation of them. And then we try to figure out how we can collect the data that is interesting for the farmer, which is also the part of the job of developing it.
That's very interesting, right? But why did you decide that? I mean, you could decide, for example, or you could decide open a veterinary clinic, for example, or something more, let's say, common. Why did you decide to work on that?
So I actually really like the lifestyle and the cultural background of small farms, marginal areas. I don't know if you ever heard of James Herriot. He's a veterinarian who wrote a lot of books about his experience, and I read them as a kid. And of course, I wanted to become a veterinarian. But when I graduated and I wanted to live this lifestyle, what I found out that most of the small farmers are losing the competition to the big ones. So if you're a small farmer and it's your family farm and now you're competing against a industrial size professional operation, you will be losing. And I thought that I want to give them a tool to be competitive. So I don't want to be just the veterinarian that goes there, treats the animals, take the money, and go home. I wanted to give them tool that will help them be competitive in the next 50 or 100 years, not just now. And so I ended up here. So I started a PhD working on the actual management of the farms, and I narrow it down to the technological aspects. So this is how a veterinarian find himself working with developers. But it's mainly because I wanted to see this lifestyle, this culture, these areas. I don't know how in Spain, but in Italy, many of these towns are getting deserted. Many of the farms are run by 60, 70-year olds. And I really like to live here, and I want the environment around me to be as flourishing as possible. And I don't want the young ones to go truck driving or be baristas in Rome. And this is the path I chose to take.
That's true. In Spain, I think it's completely the same. In my case, I come from the north of Spain, from León, which is a very countryside area, not the city, but all around. And I think there is this big problem of how small farming areas are only like now for made and maintained by old people, which is okay, but when they are going to retire, there is not going to be any kind of change, any kind of new generations taking this again. And actually, I think there is a problem of also the countryside itself. For example, in Spain, I have heard that most of the fires that we have had during the last years come actually because of that, because there is not so many people as before working on the countryside, and this is a problem that we don't see from the cities actually. So yeah.
Yeah, you touched a really interesting and important point. People, the debate about meat consumption, vegetarians. I don't want to go into this too much, but the farmer, especially the small farmer that takes his animal out and stays outside all day, he provides a lot of what is called ecosystem services. So goats or sheep or cows, they will eat the dry grass and they will prevent the fires of spreading. But if they just left there, they will trample the ground and they will destroy it. And when the rain comes, all the ground will go to the river and to the sea. So you have a pollution. And the work of the farmer is to keep the animals on this spot for enough time for them to eat the dry grass, but not too much to ruin the soil. And this is a very fine tuning mechanism. And again, one of the reasons I work with the technologies is how you can tell to the farmer, okay, you have 3 days and you need to move your animals. It's no longer depends on 300 years of tradition, because not all farmers are good, not all farmers have this tradition, not all farmers have the background. And one of the things we try to do is to give them this digital aid that will help them to be a critical role in society. Because farmers, I don't know if you're familiar with the CAP, it's a European support system of payments. Many farmers, because it's a small operation, they depend on the payments, but you need to justify the payments. It's not that they give you money because you breathe. And for farmers, it's very important to say, look, I'm maintaining this area, I'm preventing fires, I'm capturing CO2, I'm doing a lot of service, so I can get the money from the government, not because I need a handout, but because I provide service for everybody. And this is a very interesting topic because you need to quantify it. How much you provide from services. And this is another technical challenge.
I see that there is like many things around that usually people don't talk about. So that's why also I wanted to invite you to this podcast. But there is also one other topic that I want to come to this podcast, and it's uh, how did you start the company that you are, the startup that you are working on? That I said before, it's Regrowth. You are a co-founder, and how was the process? Why did you decided to go for that?
It was half passion and half mistake, at least in the beginning, because I was doing my PhD and I was going around the farms and I was trying to find what is the problem, where are they failing, and every farm I got the same response. Usually, it's a very hard work. We don't have the new generation. I need to stay all the day with the animals, and I can't find tools that will help me to reduce the workload. I can't find tools that help me to manage it. And my co-founder, he's a farmer. He comes from a family of farmers, and he went to study engineering. But in 2016, he came back to take over the farm. And because he's a technology-oriented guy, he's from 91, so he's a young farmer. He was looking also for technologies to help him, but he couldn't find any. And we sat together and we decided, okay, let's think what we can do. If we could design it, what it could be. And we designed the product. It's called our system called Leaf. It's live environmental and animal feedback. And about a week after we had this discussion, we decided to apply it to a startup competition, and we won. We won 20,000 euros a week after starting. And at this moment, it became not only two friends chatting about a hypothetical project, because now you get the money, not you get the, now you have the responsibility, and now you need to start working on it. So it was 2020 when we got it, and now we nearing to the end of 2023, and we still working on it full time.
Hi, it's Alejandro Pérez Pérez, host of the iCoffee podcast, and I have a very short message to you. Sorry for this interruption. Please, as this is an independent project, it will be really, really important for me if you could subscribe to the podcast. You could also share with your friends and relatives. And please, a very important thing is to subscribe to the iCoffee newsletter at alejandroperezperez.substack.com. It will make this project bigger and bigger, and of course, it will create more valuable interviews for you. Thank you very much, and let's continue the podcast. Okay, it sounds really really funny, right? Like you decided to go to try, and then you saw that there is something behind. But actually, even though the way you are saying that it sounds funny, actually, I think it's very important because usually many people have many ideas, but they don't put them in practice. And actually, that's the most important part. Even though it could work or not, but the only way to test it is to try it, and usually it's really hard. So congratulations for that. And also I should say that you were a colleague of me in the master, and that's also because you won this competition, right? Or another
Yeah,
one.
yeah. I
Okay.
won the competition for AI for Go for 2022, and my prize was to take part in the master, which was really really interesting. But again, if you want to talk about why animals and farming, how did we got the AI for Gov? So AI for Gov is a competition for government or public administration focused startups. And what people don't understand that there is a lot of work, government supervision coming to control the safety of the food. So when you go to a supermarket and you know that you can buy eggs or milk or meat or whatever, and you don't have to worry about tuberculosis, and you don't have to worry about disease or infection or any other, there's a lot of people going to the farms, visiting them, controlling them. There is a lot of manpower. It drains a lot of work. And what I propose that if the farms that already using or will be using our system will share the data, it can also help the public administration. So instead of trying to go and catch a disease developing, you know that in the farms, in the area, you have an increased mortality. You know, pigs are dying for some obscure reason in one farm, and then in two, and then in three. You can deduct a lot of conclusions based on the pattern, based on the behavior, based on the numbers, and then a public administrator can, apply safety measures in time. And again, you don't feel it, but once in a while you have a recall of food from the supermarkets. Like company X is taking away the entire batch of frozen yogurt. Why? It's either a contamination or some risk, and it costs a lot of money and it's very dangerous for the public. So the idea to monitor it at the source, people liked it. Or maybe because I had a nice presentation waving around with a salami and saying that if you want to eat it, you should invest in my startup.
No, but that's funny. I would like to see it anyway. But also, I have one question. I mean, because we have been talking a lot about different aspects, right? Different tools, different ideas that you are proposing that exist, like in this domain. But maybe if you could explain a little bit more what these precision livestock farming techniques are exactly, that would be really useful maybe for me and for the audience to get in contact with this thing.
So I give you an example that it's not livestock related, but it's more people related. If at the entrance to your bathroom I will put a weight, and every time you go to the bathroom I will weight you, and I know that today Alejandro went to the bathroom 5 times. 4 of them was for a short one of them was for a long one, and he weighed in average about 80 kilograms. And then I will see that you start to grow in more and more frequently, and you're losing weight, but you're still eating. This is an indication for me as a medically trained people to tell you, look, is everything all right? Is your stomach hurt? Have you been eating something different? Do you have some, a doctor can ask this, veterinarian can't ask this. We need to rely when the animal manifests the signs. So the ability to track, for example, I work now with chicken, to know that the chicken weighs 2.5 kilograms and goes to eat from its this designated spot 5 times a day, and it eats about 200 grams a day. For me, it's a lot of information, because once it changes, or once not only one of them starts losing weight, but two, three, or maybe just one losing weight, but she's doing it very drastically, it's all patterns that you can identify with. For example, a lame animal. It got the leg caught in fencing, so it's difficult to walk. It has a pain. So when she comes and eats, she eats a lot. She doesn't lose weight, but when everybody else going to eat 5 or 6 times a day, this animal comes maybe once, maybe twice. And while everybody else is growing, getting fatter, this one is not growing. For me, it's a decision. Okay, so it's not infectious, it's not spreading, it's impacting only certain aspects of behavior. And here the artificial intelligence come in, because I can explain it to you now because I'm trained, but I can't sit there and watch 300 chicken every day. Somebody needs to do it. And what we work with artificial intelligence is exactly this one, the identification of patterns, how the animal behaves, and based on its behavior, what we can say about its health.
It sounds really interesting, actually, even for humans, as you were saying, because I mean, data is powerful, is power, and it's knowledge at the end of the day that you cannot obtain otherwise. Because as you were saying, you cannot ask a pig or an animal, you cannot ask it, how are you feeling, are you hungry, what are your problems, I mean, do you have any pain? You cannot ask that. So it's very important to obtain this data from sensors, from many different tracking systems. Can you maybe say more examples of tracking systems that you have?
Yeah, so we like to work with what it's called walkover weight. It's a platform that the animal needs to step, and we take weight and how many times it works. We work with it a lot because in remote areas we don't have a lot of options. We don't have a lot of space for data. We need a very precise numerical data. But you have now, especially in more intensive farms, for example, accelerometers. You know, the watch that measures how many steps you take? Very similar, they're using it for cows. For example, when a cow wants to be bred, so it's work different for animals than humans. animals manifest their will to be bred. So a cow will start running around, and then at some point it will stop. And when it stops, it's because it wants to be bred now, and this is the time for insemination.
Okay.
And this before the sensors, it was done by eye. So a farmer would watch the animals, and he will see cow number 4 running around 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, and day number 4 it stops. And when it stops, then he will bring the bull or he will call the veterinarian for the insemination. Nowadays we have all automatized. So you have accelerometer on the cow, and you see the peak, and when it comes to the peak and then stops, you have a window of 24 hours for insemination. And you can ask me why it's so important to inseminate the cow so precisely, because the next cycle would be in a month, and a cow, while milking, makes about 50 liters of milk, and every liter of milk is about 40 cents. So you can do the math how much it costs to a farmer to miss 30 days of milking.
Yeah, it is actually. I mean, there are really clear examples that why it's so important to have this data and collect it, and of course, it also reduce the workload of the farmer. That I mean,
Yeah,
he or she doesn't really need to be there seeing them and controlling them all the time, which is actually really, I think, really
yeah.
difficult.
This is, I would say, that more than the money and more than the disease, the single most important decision for a farmer to say, I will buy the system, it's life quality. Because imagine a milking farmer that he needs to wake up at 5, he needs to milk the cows, he needs to do everything, and he needs to go back again at 5 or 6 in the evening and do it again. And you don't have a social life, you don't have a life quality. All what you do is revolves around the cows. Now you put inside the milking robot, where the cow, when the cow wants, so you don't push her, the cow go to the milking robot, it milks her, and she walks away. The cow is happier because she's doing it on her own time. The farmer is happier because he doesn't have to wake up. And farmers will pay for this life quality because I think it's the make it or break it for many young people. That you can't find friends, you can't go to a vacation, you can't have a course. It's very difficult to find a partner when all your life revolves around cows or sheep or pigs. So life quality, I would say, for the individual farmer, this is the make it or break it thing.
And actually, how do you ensure that what you are doing it creates a benefit in these marginal areas that you were discussing before?
So the idea is how many first of all, how many farms not going bankrupt? Is can we ensure that the farms are economically viable operation? So they don't lose money for overfeeding, they don't lose money for disease, they don't get closed because they have an outbreak of disease or breach in biosecurity. And this guarantees a job for many people there. It could be the decision of the son of the family to go to a factory in the city or stay at the farm. Now you can stack over it the life quality, but it also the social value, because we talked earlier about ecosystem services. I don't know how in Spain, but in Italy sometimes you have this stigma, the social stigma about farmers. The if you don't study, you will end up digging holes in the ground as a farmer. And now a farmer can actually tell you, look, I'm the one that makes sure your drinking water is clean because I'm in the mountains keeping the grassland viable so you don't have soil erosion and ammonia in the water. It's the gaining some respect from the society, life quality, and economics.
Yeah, totally agree. Actually, we always forget. I think people live in. I live in Madrid, in a big city, and I think we forget that food comes from the countryside, and you know that it doesn't come from the supermarket. So there is like a lot of things behind. And also, what you say is really important. Is like it's not only food. So it's there is a lot of things that like farmers are doing. So it's also very important, that part. Have you, I mean, I think you mentioned, right? But how do you measure this? Because you measure that you said that it's very important for them to measure the CO2 that they are
Yeah.
preventing, or how do you measure this?
So I'm doing two types of sensors. I'm doing sensors for the animals. As I mentioned, it walk over weight. It's a station, so I take the productive data, how much the animal ate, how much it gained weight. So then you have the how much kilogram of animal you get for feeding. Let's take the pata negra or the jamon production. It's pigs that go outside. It's a national treasure, I know. But when the pig comes in and eats, I will weight it in the system and I will weight the amount of feeding. And from this, you already can have a lot of data about the health. But then you will take a satellite image of his pasture where he was working. And you will see that the grass, the total amount of grass, has increased or decreased, depends on the farm management, X amount during a period of the life of the pig. And now, when you go to slaughter the pig, you can say the pig was raised for 200 days. For every 4 kilograms of feed, it grew 1 kilogram. So 1 kilogram of pig was consumed resources, the environmental impact of the feeding of the pig. But because he was walking around the trees and he was eating the grass and he was digging the roots, he increased the biosystem there. And we had 30, 40 tons of CO2 absorbed by the pasture and stored in the soil, because this is what pasture do. Pasture absorb CO2 and store it in the microbiome in the soil. You can now do an equation. For every kilogram of the pig, we had this much expense of CO2 emitted and this much expense of CO2 absorbed. And if a farmer is a good farmer and he really follows the process, you will have a negative effect. So you will have a product that absorbs more CO2 than what it emits. Again, it's not written in stone. A lot dependent on type of animal, how he paddocks, how he manages the grass quality, if there are trees or no trees. Trees are very important because they stabilize a lot of carbon. But imagine that now you as a consumer that wants to eat the pata negra and you know that it's a good quality, you like it, and now you can also say, I want this brand because this brand only buys from farmers that are so good that they are able to absorb CO2. This is the linkage, the AI driven linkage that allows this production chain. Because imagine how much calculation you need to do in real time to get to this declaration. This is sustainable. Not because somebody from marketing said so, but because you have a real data that can show it.
Yeah, that would be impossible, right? I mean, to already to process all the data, I think it would be impossible. And if you want a real time solution, I think you need to pass for a model that at least has a very simple algorithm that calculates it. So, yeah, really,
Yeah.
really, really impressive. But
Yes.
you mentioned AI. So how do you use it? I mean, you use it only for analyzing the data and
No,
taking these patterns that you say, or are you also in prediction and things like that?
I use it in three options. First is the cleaning of data. Because let's say the example of the walkover weight. An animal, for me to count as weighting, it means that the animal with one animal with all four legs needs to be on the platform. But what happens if it put one leg? Or if it's two pigs there? Or if you just put 3 legs but it was pushed, how do you know it? And here comes the first part, the filter. You need to identify which measures are real measures, which data is clean data, and which can be distracted. Because don't forget, we're working in an area where there is no cellular connection. We work with LoRa and GSM. So every bit of data I'm taking from the field and putting into the cloud has its weight that I need to evaluate. Is it worth it or not? And the AI helps us to decide it. What is clean, what is not, before going to data. Then, of course, there's the crossing, the AI in the operational part that I cross data from different sensors. Is it eating? Does the animal eat? Does it drink? How much it weight? What is the microclimate there? Is it hot? For example, when it's hot, animals drink more. They don't want to eat. So maybe the animals are too hot and you need to go and put shade there. It's not something clinical. So crossing all this data, you need an AI. And of course, the holy grail that we are aiming for is the prediction. Is the ability to say we were going towards this trend. It might be like this in the next week. Which with environmental data it's relatively easy. But with epidemiological data, for example, you have an animal which is sick, and every day you have maybe 10% increase in sick animals. How long before it will start giving, being a real problem for the entire group? This is, I'm not there yet, I must admit. The predictive AI is the holy grail we're working towards, but I'm not, I want to be there maybe next year.
No, but it's really really incredible what you are starting, because I think it creates a lot of value in a place where it's needed. That's a really important point, and also where technology in general, not even AI, but technology is really far away. So it's also really great because I have already seen a couple of things like that, but focus on really big companies, big exploitations. Um, and I think you are creating a change, a social change also in these areas, because you are helping small farmers to be at the same level as big corporations. So I think it's really really impressive. So I have just a couple of questions to finish. So my Mikel, what about, I mean, plants, plant exploitations? Because we have talked about only farming. Is it possible to do it with plants? Not even. I mean, I know that your company is not focused on that, but I mean, have you heard solutions like that in plants?
I think plants and crops, because it's more homogeneous, it's easier. Not because there is no disease, but because in today, commercial farming, the same tree, it's the same tree. It's not a son, it's not a daughter, it's not an uncle. It's the same tree cloned. And you have hectares over hectares of hectares with the same olive tree copy pasted everywhere. And even if you have a local variation based on the environment, the prediction is easier. I think plant technology, what is called precision agriculture, is actually before the animals. They going faster because once they validate it for one or two plants, they can apply it for a bigger market. And when I go to competitions or to events, I'm usually the only one. Maybe there is somebody else working on animals, and then you have a lot of people doing irrigation and disease prediction and satellite assessment. And I think the plant part is going much faster. It's easier, not because it's technically easier, but it's conceptually in the market easier.
So you wanted to do something difficult.
Exactly.
No, but it's also fine that you could say something about plants, because I think that's also a big problem. Like usually plants, I mean, people working in the countryside with plants with
Just think
agriculture
about
inside.
irrigation.
Yeah.
Just think about irrigation for a second. How much water goes for an olive tree a year? And we're getting to water scarcity, and we're getting to global warming, and we're getting to soil erosion. Remember, if you're working with plants and you don't have the grass, every year the rain washes away a lot of nutrients. And every year the land is less capable to hold the water. So you need to irrigate more. And there is a lot of ways for technology to know how much water the plant needs. Some use, tables, just simple tables. Some will measure the amount of the electric pressure caused by the roots when they absorb water. So the roots, when they absorb water, they use different amount of pressure, and they will measure it with electrodes. And by the increase or decrease of this, they will predict the irrigation needs in the upcoming days. Others will go for the fruit, for example, apples or pomegranates. They will measure the amount of water concentration inside the fruit. And based on this, they will say this tree is suffering. This tree don't have enough water to put into the fruit, so we need to irrigate it. There is a lot of very complex and high level type of technologies that I've met them, I worked with them. I'm actually doing a forestry degree now, so I worked a little bit with them as well, but it's very, very complex and very, very interesting field.
Yeah, it is. Actually, I suggest people to learn more for that, because I think it's really impressive. And the thing you told about the roots, they're like they are measuring with the pressure. I think it's really interesting. So can you say a couple of words also for a person that is maybe inspired because of this conversation, or even because of before he or she wanted to know more about this, and now this person wants to improve their career in this field? Can you say a couple of words to inspire it?
Yeah, I actually really take to heart to this because most veterinarians that I know of, most agronomists that I know of, more agricultural experts are not technically oriented. They chose these faculties because they don't want to do math, they don't want to do statistics, they don't want to have to sit in front of the computer. But I would say that in the current job market and the current need, these skills are very, very important. I meet a lot of engineers that came from the engineering background and they don't know what they need to develop, and they're looking for people from agricultural background or life science background to help them. And I would say that if you have a background in these fields, matching up with you don't have to be expert. I'm not an AI expert. I know how to design it, I know what I need from it, but at least when I speak with my co-founder, I can tell him what I need as a veterinarian. And many tech startups or tech developers, they're looking for this person. They're looking for a person that will tell him, look, you should measure, for example, the speed of water evaporation from the surface of a leaf. Why is it important? Because this is an indication of if we need to put shades or not above our lemons. But you need to be a biologist and you need to have background in it to know what you're looking for. And I would say again, if you have a background in this and you're looking to do some innovative things, don't be afraid of AI, don't be afraid of engineers, they don't bite. Find somebody that you like and start working with them. There is a lot of growth in the sector. Both the policymakers, the funding, a lot of it is going to be directed to agri-tech, life science, climate tech, nature-based solution. A lot of this sector is going to grow.
Yeah, I agree with you that, I mean, I also agree that for this specific domain, the collaboration among different actors is very important, because And I think that's the value point, right? Like to combine someone coming from the more tech sector, AI, or even developer or whatever, another person who is more used to the domain. Actually, yeah, you mentioned at the beginning that you were this person that put into connection people from countryside and engineers and data scientists. And it's very important because I always like to say that innovation comes when you take two very apparently different domains and combine them. So in your case, you are innovation. You are innovative because you are mixing two very separated domains, and you are creating, I think, a very practical solution that creates a value for you, for everyone, also for people working there, for the countryside. And I think that's a very important point. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. You should have seen the face of my co-founder when I sent him to for a week in a sheep farm. He enjoyed it. He really, really enjoyed it. But imagine that your co-founder say, Alejandro, go to a pig farm to see how they breed the chestnut fed pigs. Would you
I
like it?
I must say that when I was very young, I was used to sheep a lot because an old relative I had at this time had like thousands of them. But as when he died, I mean, he needed to sell everything and the family and so on, and that's also a case. Like, I mean, now anyone else is doing the same thing. So now for example, I wouldn't even know how to start with. So yeah, and
You,
hopefully, because I think it's important, but yeah, we are forgetting everything like that. Yeah.
yeah, you can come to my farm when you're next in Italy. We can have a chat with the animals around.
Okay, I take it. I take it. Okay, so Mikel, a couple of questions to finish. Very short questions. Don't worry, and very easy ones. So the first one would be, how can the audience contact you or your startup Regrowth if they want to collaborate with you, for example? And also the last one, it's how do you like coffee? Because this is the AI Coffee podcast. You are living in Italy, so I hope that you like coffee and that you like coffee a lot. So yeah, let us know.
Yeah, so I would not say my long last name, but I'm on LinkedIn. So if you like put Michael Precision Livestock Farming, you will get me. Or Regrowth is the startup name. We're not very active on social, but again, you will put it on LinkedIn and you will get it. It's either us or a hair transplant group. So you would not have the mistake. It's two of us there. And about the coffee, I'm biased. I'm Israeli. I grew up in Israel, and I like my coffee Turkish black with no sugar, especially when it's on the fire or something out hiking. So it adds a flavor. I think the smoke adds a lot of flavor to it.
I haven't ever tasted this, so maybe I should go to your house to see the sheeps also, and
And
to
we
take
have a camping coffee. Yeah, camping
perfect. It
coffee is a
sounds
good one.
really it sounds really great.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for being here, for taking your time, for talking about a very important thing, and yeah, I hope that you like it also.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Great conversation, and I really like the meeting, interview, how you call it. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
And also, thank you to you to see the iCoffee podcast one more episode. If you liked it, please subscribe to the podcast wherever you are listening it. Share it with your friends or relatives. Also, if you go to the countryside now, you are going to understand better everything. And please, that's a very important thing. Contact Regrowth if you want to obtain more details about your farming and so on. So thank you very much.